This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it in
Yeah,
me.
stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common
But
sense.
my homework is
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it. Wednesday, the day after. Time for some post-mortem. Hillary Clinton had a big night. Donald Trump had a big night. But more so for Hillary, maybe. Although Hillary has finally said it. She is finally saying it that Trump could be president. You could look at him and think there's no way he'll ever get elected and wish him away, but we can't. Trump can win a general election if people like you and me assume he'll collapse under his own weight, that someone else is going to stop him. Well, is that a lesson for the Republicans at this moment, eh? Republicans that ever since last July, when he first took the lead in the polls, said he can't win, he'll be out, he will self-destruct, so on and so forth. So here's where we are. Hillary picked up big wins in Florida and Ohio. Too close to call in Missouri. And tight race in Illinois as well this hour. For the Republicans, Trump seems to have won all four of the states: Florida, North Carolina, Illinois, Missouri. Still too close to call Missouri. It's only the amount of votes separating. Bernie's only trailing Hillary by about 600 votes in Missouri. Donald Trump has about an 1,800 vote lead with like 380,000 cast. It's tight. I mean, let me tell you that. But John Kasich, he nabs Ohio. Yeah, he nabs Ohio. He's able to hold off Donald Trump to win his own state, the governor there, and the 66 delegates, leaving him only about, 1,100 short of the number needed to win the Republican nomination, and there isn't any path that he can take to possibly get him there. So what is John Kasich going to do? Well, apparently he's going to stay in the race and be the disruptor the Republicans have longed for since Trump moved to that top spot in the polls last summer. Governor Kasich is going to stay in the race. He made that clear last night, despite the fact he is only playing the role of spoiler. In fact, he isn't likely to win any other primaries in the near future. Trump won the big prize of Florida and its 99 delegates. Plus, he picked up wins in North Carolina, Illinois, and probably Missouri. However, it's now a much tougher road for Trump to get to the 1,237 delegates. He just went past the halfway point. But it's going to be tough for him to get the delegates needed for the nomination. He will have to take more than 50% of the remaining voters, pretty much, to wrap up the GOP nod. Now, that's a tall order with a fractured field because, don't forget, Ted Cruz is still in here. Senator Marco Rubio, after finishing second in his home state of Florida, had the good sense to end his bid for the White House. He became the establishment favorite for a brief time, but wasn't enough to jumpstart his effort, even with the sudden backing of GOP billionaires. Republican Party bosses, in what may well be remembered as their last stand, have turned to one candidate after another in the hopes of derailing the man they demanded a loyalty pledge from last August. They demanded the pledge from Donald Trump so he would not launch a third-party candidacy. Now, however, as you're all seeing and witnessing, they have turned on him in force, and it could well be the beginning of the very end for the Republican Party, who could soon be the new Whig Party. When you ignore the will of the people and thumb your nose at voters and play what looks to be a rigged game for all to see, the only losers will be those trying to pull the scam. Do not underestimate the anger of the American people. Remember, we live in an age of smartphones, social media, and a 24-hour news cycle. There is no way in that atmosphere the elite will be able to slide in a candidate they find acceptable and get away with it. It will create a complete meltdown. The bosses had few choices left when they finally began to panic about the growing success of Donald Trump. They turned reluctantly at the very last possible moment to Governor John Kasich of Ohio and to a lesser extent Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. But at this point, it is not a winning strategy to stop Trump. In fact, it may be far worse. John Kasich cannot win, period. It appears, however, he does intend to leave. He does not intend to leave the race. He is putting himself ahead of the voters and the future of this country. This is precisely why American voters in general are fed up with career politicians and politics as usual. They need to know when it's time to leave. That time is now, but it's not going to happen. Ted Cruz, meanwhile, has a very narrow path to victory that will close quickly as well. Will he stay in well past his expiration date? Well, probably, but only time will tell. If the Republican Party plays games and forces a brokered convention in Cleveland this summer, everybody loses because it will effectively leave America with just one political party. It'll be a one-party state on its way down the Marxist toilet with no plan to stop it. Why? Because the Republican Party will cease to be relevant going forward in national politics. That's why. The party won't be relevant anymore. If you ignore the will of the people, whether you like Donald Trump or not, the majority of the people that have gone to the polls in the system set up by Republicans, for Republicans, Donald Trump has mastered the system, picking up 4 out of 5 more states last night. 4 out of 5. And for the first time, he's also topped 50% in polling numbers in national support. So if the Republican Party ignores that, he's not our candidate, he's not our choice, he's not the anointed one, well, what are you going to do now? You may want to scream and holler, but this is the creation of spineless Republicans. Let me remind you, this is the creation of Republicans winning elections and nothing changing. This is the creation of Barack Obama running over our Constitution and creating a land of regulations and rules created by bureaucracies and never voted on by the people we send to represent us. You know, if Republicans had stopped some of the agenda items of the president after the 2014 election, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But they didn't. They caved into ridiculous budget demands. They caved in on Obamacare and Planned Parenthood. They caved in all over the field. And as a result, it's now caving in on them. In the end, Barack Obama will have and has succeeded in fundamentally changing America. And from where I stand, that is not a good thing. No, not good at all. But the Republicans have made their own bed. And now they're screaming about where they have to lay down. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966, the number to call to give me your 2 cents looking forward. I'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
When the forest burns along the road, like God's eyes in my headlights. When the dogs are looking for their bones.
All right, welcome back to it. I didn't finish this comment on
ice picks on your steel shore.
On Donald Trump breaking this. You'll hear a lot of the opponents of Donald Trump in the Republican Party say that he can't break this ceiling. Somehow he's stuck, at a certain point. But in the last 2 weeks, he has won more delegates in primaries and caucuses and continues to roll up the wins despite the setback in Ohio and the 66 delegates there. But the week's Economist YouGov poll finds Trump still on top, cruising along, and has now hit 53% support. 53% support for Donald Trump. So where's the ceiling? Rubio's out, Carson's out. Rubio was still picking up 10%, so it's possible that Trump's number could go just a couple of clicks higher. If Trump picks up 20% of the Rubio support, that puts him at 55%. Ted Cruz came in this poll at 22 and John Kasich at 11. So that this notion that Trump has some sort of a ceiling is quickly fading away. Let's see here. In other, just digging through all of this because it's important. Hillary Clinton will revise her current anti-trade deal stance once she's in office, according to the head of a prominent business association. It's called the Business Roundtable. The president of that organization is a man you've probably heard of. His name is John Engler. John Engler, the former governor of Michigan, has been on this program a few times recently, cited the Clintons' family history of changing their stance on trade deals and downplayed the significance of Hillary Clinton's current opposition to the pending Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiated by Barack Obama. There's a history in the family, in the Clinton family, where President Clinton was opposed to NAFTA in its current form before the election and then was the champion in the 90s, said Engler, who obviously was in office at that time. There's nothing new about candidates running who are opposed to trade deals, noting that Clinton has not spelled out any specific objections to the 12-nation deal. So there you have it. That's a polite way of saying she's lying. One more, a couple of Hillary headlines here as we reflect on Super Tuesday, part whatever. A Ku Klux Klan Grand Dragon has endorsed the Democratic presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, saying he decided to support her because he likes her hidden agenda. We want Hillary to win, said Will Quigg, a Grand Dragon of the Klan's California chapter. She is telling everybody one thing, but she has a hidden agenda. She's telling everybody what they want to hear so she can get elected because she's Bill Clinton's wife. She's close to the Bushes. Once she's in the presidency, she's going to come out and her true colors are going to show. I cannot reveal my sources, he said. And I wonder why there's been no demand of her to renounce that. That's going on being 48 hours old now. George Soros so alarmed now that he's reaching money levels that he hasn't spent since 2004, when he bought buckets of money to unseat George W. Bush. Yeah, he's been, he spent some money here and there, but he spent, piles of money in 2004 trying to unseat George W. Bush. He's committed at least $15 million to support Hillary Clinton and other Democrats this election cycle, and says that he will continue to fund these rent-a-riots, my term, not his, of course, the rent-a-riots that turn out at Trump events trying to shut down the freedom of speech, where the little fascists can come out and do the little Hitler Youth demonstration and impersonation. What about Hillary Clinton's gaffes, though? Like, let's see, what has she done recently? Let's see. She applauded Nancy Reagan's response to HIV and AIDS in the 1980s, which caused tremendous pushback in liberal circles. A couple of days later, just in the last few days, she told the truth. We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. We're going to screw the unions that have supported us previously, is what she said. Basically, we're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. Don't worry, that'll be in a political ad. It's what she said, her words. And then referring to Libya, here just Monday, Clinton said we didn't lose a single person in Libya. Of course, that fails to mention the 4 people, including the American ambassador, killed in a terrorist attack in 2012. Now, of course, Democratic strategists say these missteps won't do any damage. It just says that, tired candidates make mistakes. Yeah, well, like Donald Trump says, does she have the stamina to be president? Does she have the stamina to be president? And one more story, going a different direction for just a moment here. A disappointing story, to say the least, that I'm going to share with you before we go to our next break here. But former Michigan State basketball star Mateen Cleaves charged yesterday with sexually assaulting a 24-year-old woman in Mundy Township, that's Flint area, after a charity golf outing. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office announced that Cleaves is charged with unlawful imprisonment, assault with intent to commit criminal sexual penetration, second-degree criminal sexual conduct, 2 counts of third-degree criminal sexual conduct. He faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted. Of course, Cleves, the standout superstar basketball player from Flint Northern, who led the Michigan State Spartans to the college national championship in 2000. Tom Izzo's lone championship so far, but he could get another one this year. But what a terrible bit of timing for this. Apparently this happened back in September. Cleves was at a charity golf outing in September when he allegedly introduced himself to the victim, her boyfriend, and several coworkers. Cleves and the group allegedly went to a local bar, did some drinking. When there was time to leave, the victim jumped in with Cleves, thinking she was getting a ride home because the boyfriend had to take some other folks home. He took her to a hotel, they say, where they claim these assaults took place. No word yet on Cleves' situation, but that is just disheartening, that's all. 25 after on a Wednesday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
Welcome back to it. Hey, a little heads up on that big wind coming across Michigan today. Wind gusts in excess of 50 miles an hour for big portions of the state. Just giving you a heads up on that as there was some hail and some thunder and so forth rolling through last night. Woke me for a moment, didn't bother me too much. Thank you for asking. But yeah, some big wind today. Keep that in mind. Could knock some weaker limbs down or knock some power out in some places. So you have been warned. Our next guest, Todd Wood, journalist for the Washington Times. Todd Wood. Palestinians are rejecting a secret Netanyahu offer on the West Bank. We're going to talk about that and how he pulled that off. But first, we're going to talk about everything that happened last night. Todd, welcome back to the program.
Oh, Steve, thanks for having me on.
So here's my take on Governor Kasich and him remaining in the race. He shouldn't. Yes, he won in Ohio, and congratulations to you. You're a governor with 70% approval. You ought to win your own state. But after that, he has no path to victory anywhere. He's only about 1,100 delegates short of the 1,200 needed to nominate, and yet he's going to stay in as a spoiler, I suppose. And if John Kasich stays in and follows that path, I believe he could be the person that begins the final unraveling of the Republican Party. He could destroy the party because he could set up a situation where you have a brokered convention which will not fly. What do you think?
I would tend to agree with you, but I think that's the goal, is it not?
Well, to destroy the party? I don't know the goal is to destroy the party. I don't think they realize what they're doing, because if it becomes a rigged system, in a day and age where we have social media and 24-hour news cycles and smartphones and information everywhere, right. you can't hide. You can't go in a back room with a cigar and hide and make these little smoky. Everybody will know everything that's going on pretty much all the time. You're under a microscope. And if you go in there and it looks like it's a rigged deal, and you go in and play games, I mean, there's only 2 people that can be president now, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and really Donald Trump has got the inside track. He might still get enough of the delegates, but it's going to be a little bit tougher now. And with Rubio gone, he might get there. But, he broke the ceiling on the YouGov poll at 53% support yesterday. Yeah. But still, Kasich could be the man that destroys the Republican Party if he follows this path.
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, frankly, in my opinion, immigration is killing the country, at least illegal immigration. I think just legal immigration is fantastic. It's helped us throughout the centuries, but illegal immigration is killing us, and Trump is the only one who can and will and has said he would do something about it. So, but I think still, to answer your question, I think that's the purpose of Kasich staying in. If it's close between Cruz and Trump, 100 delegates or so, and Kasich can throw his, and Rubio can throw his Cruz's way, I think that's what they're looking to do. I don't think it'll be backroom. I think it will be contested if that happens. But it depends on how big the Trump lead is, in my opinion.
What do they think they're going to do? Do they think they're going to parade out Mitt Romney, and think that he's going to get more than 3 votes? I mean, seriously.
No, I think they'll push Cruz, but...
No, they won't. They hate Cruz. They hate him, too. I mean, that's my...
Yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. I just don't think the third guy is I agree with you. That would completely blow up the party. But I do think they want to get someone other than Trump, which I don't understand. I mean, the guy has completely opened up the floodgates for new people into the party, and if they were smart, they'd find a way to keep them. But I don't know. I think the Republican Party needs to have this happen. It's not a vibrant party anymore, and it needs to be changed.
In a week, when Hillary Clinton says things like, "We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business,"
Can you believe that?
Yeah, full frontal assault on unions and coal companies. If you want to win Pennsylvania, you might want to put that ad up now with Donald Trump's smiling face on the end of it, and just start running it over and over and over. You might want to run that in East Ohio, too. Eastern Ohio, you might want to run some anti-coal ads in Eastern Ohio, or maybe in Virginia and other places that have a few coal mines. You might want to run those ads continuously starting now. I'm serious.
And then follow up with the "no one died in Benghazi" or Libya comment.
We didn't lose a single person in Libya. Oh, we didn't?
I understand she was talking about the air campaign, but the arrogance to say that with what has gone on since the investigations and everything is just completely insensitive to the families of those men and frankly, to our country.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen here. Ted Cruz, he should be, I don't think he has a path to the nomination anymore either. And he ought to be smart enough to, if he believes in the country and the Constitution and the system the way he claims to, then he should step aside and let the process work. We have to unify. Hillary Clinton is not acceptable. And we just have to find a way to unify the party. That's what needs to happen. Yeah. We need a leader. We need somebody to get it done. So, okay, Mr. Trump, get it done. That's my opinion. Yeah, because maybe the Republicans, if they were going to panic about it, should have done that last July instead of dismissing him and saying he's a fluke. It'll never happen. They don't understand. Yeah, I agree. Even the Republicans don't understand that their spineless behavior, their feckless leadership that didn't change anything after the 2014 election, sent through crappy, ridiculous $1.1 trillion omnibus bills and funded Obamacare and funded amnesty for illegals and funded Planned Parenthood, and nothing changed. And nothing changed. And they expect people to, just vote for us again. We're working on it. No more working on it. Either you're going to get it done or you're going to get out. Yeah, and I can see Romney over there gloating, last night because he got Ohio done for Kasich. I mean, I don't think Romney made a hill of beans difference in Ohio. I think Kasich was destined to win Ohio from the first day they entered the race. Again, he's a very popular governor. He won re-election with something like 62% of the vote. He carried Cuyahoga County with 52% of the vote during the last election for governor in 2014. It's unheard of. I mean, Cuyahoga County is like 70% Democrat. He carried the county. He carried all but 2 counties out of 88 in the entire state. So he should win. But what good does it do? I agree. He has no path. I agree. I think Romney is just gloating. That's which makes me even more angry. Which, if they think he's going to make a difference at the convention, I might have to shoot the TV. I don't know. I saw that video. Yeah, I saw that video. Was that Bruce Springsteen, 57 channels and there's nothing on? Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. At any rate. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. What happened in Missouri? Did he win Missouri? I haven't even looked. It's too close to call. In Missouri, both of them are too close to call. Hillary Clinton has about a 500 or 600 vote lead over Bernie. And Donald Trump, last time I looked, had about an 1,800 vote lead over Ted Cruz. So that gives him, so his lead is also less than 1%, but Hillary and Bernie are even closer. So Missouri, a very divided state, apparently. So there's no result there, but Trump picked up easy victories in Florida. I mean, easy in Florida. He cruised with. Why? Seniors trust him. Yeah. To take care of their Social Security and so forth. North Carolina was easy. Illinois was easy. Tight in Missouri, and of course the loss in Ohio. I didn't see the final numbers in Ohio. Doesn't really matter, but. By the way, speaking of Missouri, did you see that the enrollment numbers for Mizzou are way down? They're collapsing. Yeah, they're collapsing under the weight of the little liberal fascists. The Hitler Youth has driven people away from campus. Yeah, I saw that. You know what? Well, that's a reckoning right there. People don't go to college to be surrounded by liberal fascists, which is what they are. You shall speak. You shall have freedom of speech if we tell you what that speech is. I mean, no, it's not the way we work. Todd, hold on right there. We'll get back to these things and we'll talk about the West Bank. We'll talk about Putin leaving Syria as well, straight ahead right here on the Steve Gruber Show.
delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, welcome back to it. We're on with Todd Wood, who writes the threat assessment all day, every day for you. Sometimes it's just a sentence or two, but he keeps you up to date on what's going on. And I saw this headline about Netanyahu making some secret offer to the Palestinians, and they said, well, no. Tell me about what's happening there, Todd.
Well, if you think back to the Oslo Accords when the Palestinians were offered their own state, they turned that down because they're not out to get their own state. They're out to destroy Israel and keep the conflict going. That's the goal. So, Israel's been taking a lot of heat for continuing to have a presence in the territories. And so Netanyahu said, okay, how about we'll pull out. We'll give you the West Bank as long as you let us do it slowly. We'll start with the cities and then go from there. And if, you don't start some kind of violence against Israel, we'll give you all the territory. But they refused. So, that's as simple as that.
So their goal, in your estimation, is to keep the conflict going, to continue to be victims on infinitum.
Exactly. That way they get the support of the Europeans, and they get free money and they can support terrorists. They're not out for peace. As Golda Meir said, I forget the exact quote, is when the Arabs don't hate their children as much as they hate us, or something like that. Basically saying, when they love their children more than they hate us, that was it. That's when we'll have peace. But we're not there yet. Right.
So, yeah, a long way away. So that's rejected. And so Netanyahu, though, working behind the scenes, trying to get something done, trying to put, peace together. So let me ask you this. Because I was, seeing a thing about our little fascist liberal friends who are shutting down discussion on college campuses, neither safe spaces, and they routinely attack conservative speakers. In fact, conservative speakers get attacked and shut down, just like you see the Donald Trump thing get shut down on an all too regular basis on college campuses around America. One of those groups that get shut down on a regular basis are those that support Israel. Pro-Israeli speakers, Jewish speakers get shut down. What will Jewish voters do in the fall of 2016? They have to see what's going on as well.
That's the big question, right? Why are so many Jews so liberal and anti-conservative? And that's been a real question, especially in the Northeast, in the New York area. It's almost that liberalism has become the new religion of many Jews in America. I don't completely understand it and can't really talk to it, to be honest, because I don't quite get it. If you look at history and you look at, what is actually happening, then that wouldn't be the case, but it is. So I can't answer that question, to be honest.
Well, you have to be careful because you have religious Jews and secular Jews, and so do not confuse the two when it comes to voting. However, most Jews, secular or religious, tend to support Israel, but that has not been the case of this president. It is not the case of college campuses and the movement across America. It is certainly not the case of what's going on in Europe. Jews are fleeing parts of Europe in mass numbers because of the influx of Muslim refugees from the Middle East. So it's happening all over again. Confusing.
Yeah, I don't know. I spend a lot of time in New York, and I don't know if you can say that most Jews support Israel anymore. It's just that's just an open question. But I agree with you. Most Jews do support Israel outside the big cities, but they're not. I guess their voice is not loud enough to make it known. I don't know.
And so the new religion is fascist liberalism. I suppose we can live with that. Okay, so on the other story here that you've covered this week, why Vladimir Putin has ordered substantial Russian military assets removed and withdrawn from Syria. What's going on there?
Well, I'm going to write a column about this on Friday in the Times, and I think this is a classic example of putting your nation's interests first. Not worried about political correctness, not worried about, frankly, hasn't been worried about collateral damage as in civilian deaths. He's been worried about Russia's self-interest. And, aside from the morality and the ethics of that, this is exactly what he has accomplished. He wanted to keep the Assad regime in power. That was it. And he did so. And so now he's leaving. He doesn't have the money to stay there long term, but talk about a guy playing a weak hand very well. His economy's collapsing, but you wouldn't know that looking at what's happened.
But he's able to pull the strings. Yeah, he's able to pull the strings and win, like you said, a weak hand. Yeah. Okay, two more things. while we're doing the lightning round here. Backpack nukes out of North Korea, and which could make them, operational. Plus, Iran about to launch a missile, it seems, or a rocket, I guess would be the more accurate term, into space. So the North Koreans, as a result of Bill Clinton's horrible deal, are near operational, and Iran they're just going full on a taunt at the deal they put together with Barack Obama.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of North Korean experts who, one of them I know, who Dr. Mansourian at Georgetown, and people are concerned about North Korea. It's not in the news very often, but it's probably the most significant threat we have. I mean, this guy is off the charts wacko, and he's going to have miniature bombs. He's going to have ICBMs. He's getting submarine-launched ballistic missiles. And, a lot of the research and analysis is coming out saying this guy might actually use them. So that is the real scary part. And he can miniaturize the weapons. He can put them in backpacks. He can put them on a boat into New York City. This is the result and consequence of the failure of our policies. Exactly what Trump is talking about. We've had horrible deals, and we need somebody to stand up and deal with these issues, because nobody, including Bush, did not deal with it effectively.
No, it didn't get dealt with at all. And this was the deal with North Korea was put forth in 1994, as I recall. And I remember something about Bill Clinton saying that we'll be able to monitor, we'll bring them into the family of nations, right, or however the hell he said it, right?
Just like the sanctions are going to snap back on Iran once they launch the third or fourth ballistic missile test, which is against the deal. So, Obama has been shown his true colors on this one.
Yeah, but what is Barack Obama's, and you got like 10 seconds, what is his advantage of letting Iran get away with it or make the deal in the first place?
I think it's just his agenda. I've said that before on your show. I just don't think his priority is making America great, if you will. It's weakening America and, getting us out of any other, possible conflicts.
All right. Well, Todd, I greatly appreciate it. L. Todd Wood, real quickly, where can they find you?
LToddWood.com. If you want to stay up all night reading, check out my first novel, Currency. 36 countries, people reading it now, so check it out.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Back in a moment on the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Wednesday here on the program. Thanks for dialing it in. The phone number to get on board, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. What is your takeaway if you want to share with what happened yesterday? Big wins for Donald Trump. Big wins, the burn being extinguished for a lot of folks, and they didn't have to see the doctor or anything, but the burn being extinguished by plenty. Big wins by Donald Trump. We could be witnessing the implosion of the Republican Party, but not for the reasons you might think. Not because they're going to a brokered convention because they have to, but because they won't play by the rules, their own rules, it seems. It seems the Republican Party thinks that they should be able to set their own rules over and again, move the goalposts, if you will. They've gone after candidate after candidate after candidate trying to, figure out who they can line up with to be an establishment candidate. Jeb Bush or whoever that they decided to get with. But now they're running out of options, you see. They're running out of options, and now they're down to John Kasich, but they joined his bandwagon so late that all they're going to do is destroy their own credibility. I mean, Kasich was able to hold off Trump and win his own state of Ohio. They gave him 66 delegates there. Trump appears to have won all the rest, although Missouri is still close to call. Trump only leading Cruz by about 1,800 votes, 0.2%. Hillary Clinton leading Bernie Sanders by even less votes. Pretty crazy, actually, in Missouri. But in the rest of the states, Trump sailed. Florida, North Carolina, Illinois, sailed through them, and so Missouri remains very close. But here's the problem. You see that they went out and they demanded, the Republicans demanded that Donald Trump give them an oath of his loyalty last summer in August. Give us your oath. This is after, of course, he became the front runner. Give us your oath that if you don't win the nomination, that you will not run as a third party. You have to give us your word. And Trump met with Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. He said, okay, I'll do it. Behind closed doors. We don't know the specifics, but apparently he made the deal. And now Trump continues to win. Now, see, this whole time, August, September, October, all the way up to Iowa and New Hampshire, the Republicans kept saying, well, he can't win. Donald Trump can't win, so therefore we're going to brush him aside. And at some point, we'll pick up with it. They put their money behind Jeb Bush. $130 million he spent for like 5 votes. They put their money in different places. And their candidates, getting the Republican backing of the establishment is the kiss of death this time around. And if the Republican establishment decides to back if the Republican establishment decides to back itself, it too shall implode. I'm also just learning that the president, Barack Obama, has picked a Supreme Court nominee to replace Justice Antonin Scalia. It has not been announced yet. It will be announced at 11 o'clock today. So here's the next big fight. I'm doing my job. I hope the Senate will do theirs, he says. This is what the Constitution dictates and what the American people expect and deserve from their leaders. Although the Constitution does not require the Senate to do anything. So no matter what you are told by rabble-rousing leftist fascists demanding that a Supreme Court justice be appointed, there is nothing in the Constitution requiring that to happen. Nothing at all. But Barack Obama has stepped out now and just said that they've issued a statement. They will have their announcement at 11 o'clock today. They'll have their announcement at 11 o'clock today for his pick to be Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. He will not pick a moderate. He will not have picked a moderate that would be, somewhat acceptable to both sides. He will pick a leftist, activist judge because it's what he does. He is putting his thumb in the eye of you and I. The 47% that will never vote for him, he does not care about. It is not your America. It is his America, and he will do as he pleases. He does not care about the Constitution or how it works. Constitutional scholar, that's what they try to claim. It's garbage. Constitutional scholar, my ass. I'm telling you, it's garbage. So this will become the big political football for the next few weeks. Hillary Clinton said it last night in her speech that it's time for Republicans to get out of the way, and it's time for Barack Obama to pick a justice. But there is no requirement whatsoever for the Senate. It says it does not say, it says consent. It does not say concede. I'm looking for the passage in the Constitution right now. And I will figure it out. Because I will read this to you, because this is going to be the big political fight for the next several weeks and months will be over the Supreme Court. We'll see if Mitch McConnell has a spine. Mitch McConnell still has a chance to save what's left of the Republican Party. A small chance. If the Republicans play by the rules they put forth, in the nominating process for President of the United States, and they hold off on hearings and a vote on a nominee for the Supreme Court, they may still have a shot at this thing. Absent either of those two things, and I doubt it. Think about what's at stake here. If there's another activist liberal judge put on the court, like Sotomayor or Elena Kagan, that means that your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms will likely disappear. Almost guaranteed. They will reinforce the fact that executive amnesty is okay, opening the southern border to whomever they want to bring in, flooding America with cheap labor, and overwhelming our infrastructure for low-income health care and schooling and so forth. This has already happened in some places. You know it, and so do I. You know, executive orders in general will be unleashed in a way you've never seen before. The EPA and other agencies will be able to write rules, implement rules, and enforce rules by arresting you, taking your property, without it ever going to Congress. These are the sorts of things that are at stake with a new Supreme Court justice. And now it's all on the table today on The Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
All right, welcome back to it. It is Wednesday here, and I want to read this to you because it's important now. At 11 o'clock today, Barack Obama will announce his nominee to fill the vacancy on the United States Supreme Court left by Antonin Scalia. This has not happened in America in well over 100 years. That an appointment be made in an election year with the death of a sitting justice in an election year. And in fact, there's a lot of precedent for not doing it, according to Democrats and so forth. So here we are. Here's what it says. Article 2, Section 2, the president shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint judges of the Supreme Court. By and with the advice and consent of the Senate. It doesn't say with the advice and advise and concede. It doesn't say that. Dan Perkins joining me now. Dan Perkins, a foreign policy contributor to ReaganBaby.com and elsewhere. Dan, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on again.
Glad to have you back. Big news this morning. This just popped up, so I thought I'd take a moment and have this conversation.
Sure. Absolutely.
At 11 o'clock today. So Article 2, Section 2, the president shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint. He has to have the consent of the Senate. It doesn't say that they're required to do anything. It doesn't say they have a timetable to do anything. In fact, they can sit there and do nothing at all, and it is completely constitutional. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, taking it taking your thought to a logical conclusion, under the advice and consent rule, the Senate can say, under the advice rule, Mr. President, we suggest you withdraw the nomination. Or they can say, Mr. President, we're not going to hold hearings until January 22nd, 2017. They can do whatever they want. It's all part of what the framers did in the checks and balances. And the question's going to become whether or not the Republicans have the will to prevent the president from naming a liberal replacement for Antonin Scalia, or are they going to cave? Now, if you listen to Charlie Schumer from New York, he's saying that there's going to be an enormous amount of pressure on the Republican leadership to confirm the president's nominee. That sounds like somebody speaking who is in the majority, not the minority. I think that it fits in the narrative of what's going on in the campaign.
It fits in the narrative of what's going on in America. The little liberal fascist bullies, whether it's with safe spaces on college campuses or attacking and shutting down presidential campaign events, or it's the minority demanding that you do things my way because I say so, and I'm a petulant little brat, and I'm a liberal fascist, and if you don't do things my way, I'll call you a racist, and I'll call you a bigot, and I'll make you look really bad, and I'll attack you with people who don't read enough to know the difference, and so I'll attack you on character because we have no class and we have no shame.
Wow, I couldn't have said it any better than that, sir. Well said.
Well, that's what concerns me, Dan, and it makes me angry. And here's the other thing: it takes 60 votes of the Senate to confirm a Supreme Court nominee, correct?
Yes, supermajority. Yes, 60.
So and so it doesn't say that here either, but apparently that's the conclusion they've arrived at. So my point being, as long as the Republicans,
rules of the Senate.
Right, as long as the Republicans have 41 sitting senators, the Supreme Court could split 4-4. For the next 5 years, I'd be perfectly fine with it. As long as it protects my Second Amendment rights, as long as it shuts down executive amnesty, as long as it makes America a nation that is ruled by laws, that's where it needs to be. And where do we go from here, though, Dan?
Well, this is at the point you just made. I would, with all due respect to your wisdom, I would slightly disagree with you a little bit. The problem with a 4-4 court is that if the court cannot come up with a 5-3 decision, then the challenge to the court revert back to the lower court, and so that the lower court is now becoming the law of the land because the Supreme Court is split even 50-50. So the reason why we need that ninth justice sitting there as soon as possible is to circumvent the returning of cases after cases back to the lower court until the president and the Congress decides on who's the ninth nominee. I think we need a ninth nominee as quickly as possible after the election as we can put in.
Well, see, I will respectfully disagree with you. Dan Perkins on the line, a regular contributor here to the program. The Supreme Court originally had 6 members.
That's correct.
And so, a split court, well, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It goes back to the lower court. It's what you said, I believe, checks and balances. And the Supreme Court was never supposed to be a body that could basically create law like it has done on so many different occasions.
That's also correct.
It's not supposed to create law. It's supposed to interpret law. And like Scalia used to say, even if you get a silly decision from a court, it's because the law is a silly law. Not because, and you get a silly decision because it's not for the justices to determine, well, the legislature actually intended to do X, Y, and Z. No, that's not really their job. But anyhow, Dan,
that's true.
We'll have to have you back on. On what's going on with Hillary's health, because I am concerned about her health and some of the things that she's saying, weird gaffes that she's making. So we want to get you back soon, but you just happen to show up right at a perfect time about the Supreme Court. Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir. Take care.
There you have it. We'll have more on this, of course, going forward. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
Welcome back to it, 33 after the hour. 33 after the hour. We have Carrie Lukas with us now, the managing director at the Independent Women's Forum and co-author of Liberty is No War on Women. All is not fair in politics, so says Carrie, and welcome back to the program, my friend.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, so before we go any further, 2 questions for you that are of great importance. What about Donald Trump now, and where do you go? Because I saw some interesting postings on the on the IWF, the Independent Women's Forum, and then I'm going to get to a Supreme Court question. But where is the IWF when it comes to Donald Trump? I know you guys, from what I've read, not fans.
Well, I don't want to I understand what has made so many Americans interested in Donald Trump, and I understand some of the appeal of the straight talk and kind of pushing back against Washington. But, we're about issues and ideas. I care about policies, and I feel very uncertain about where Mr. Trump is in terms of tax reform and the economy, whether he would tackle entitlements, his approach on immigration and on health care. I think there's so many kind of question marks that it makes it hard to be excited about his candidacy as a champion of the policies that I care about. But, I think when it comes to, I think one of the things that is the most difficult in this, when you're talking about Donald Trump, is that, there's this great instinct, and I totally share the frustration with so many Americans about the overwhelming political correctness that has dominated politics and really made a lot of people feel hamstrung, like you can't talk about things, and particularly tiptoe around issues of women and made it hard to be conservative and to defend the idea of limited government without being tarred as a party to the war on women. I think it's great to have somebody who's trying to kind of buck that trend. But I wish that we could all take kind of a step back and say, okay, there's one thing about political correctness and then one thing about kind of politeness and basic decorum and decency. And I hate to see the pushback from political correctness instead be something where we're really contributing to the coarsening of the culture, which I think most conservatives say is a problem that we want to solve, not make worse.
I'm not sure I got an answer there, Carrie. It was a good speech. I liked it. I did. You didn't answer the question, and you know it.
Okay, well, I mean, what do you want me to say? Whether or not
Trump,
I'm a Donald Trump fan? No, I'm not a Donald. I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm as a person, a representative of a C3. I'm not here to tell anybody who to vote for or try to play my hand of who.
No, I understand that. But if it gets down to Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, then what are you going to do? I mean, what can we do? What's left?
Yeah, here's the thing. I think that I would certainly. I know Hillary Clinton's record, and I know what she stands for. So I certainly would. I could never cast a vote for Mrs. Clinton. It's inconceivable because I know that she would take the country in the wrong direction. If it comes down to a choice between Clinton and Trump, I would need to. I hope to hear a whole lot more. I wish I could be convinced that Trump would at least move the country in the right direction in terms of being committed to positive economic policy, rolling back regulations, advancing things like budget reform and trying to bring down spending, ending crony capitalism, reforming immigration for the better. But right now, man, I don't know what I'd be voting for if I'm voting for Donald Trump. So I truly have no idea if that comes to pass, what I would be doing in seven months or whatever it is now. And I would really need to hear more and see if he can earn my vote because right now I'm not convinced.
Tortured soul Carrie Lukas on the program today.
There's a lot of those out there. I bet that there's a lot of people who...
I can hear yourself trying to do self-therapy there and work yourself through it, and I think I appreciate that. I do, Carrie.
There you go.
I mean, it's a long slog for some folks, and I get that. Okay, one other thing. The president now announcing that he's going to announce a Supreme Court justice nominee a little bit later today. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, the Constitution says that the president shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint judges of the Supreme Court. But it doesn't say the Senate is required to do anything. Of course, he's going to, the constitutional scholar that he alleges to be, which he is no constitutional scholar, is going to try to ram this down America's throat and tell them, well, you have you are required to do this. You're not required to do anything. The advice could be, as we had a guest here momentarily ago said, the advice could be, Mr. President, withdraw that nomination. That's our advice. That could be the advice.
I do think I would very much hope that Republicans would be ready to stand strong. We do have an election coming in just a few months. This will determine who is the president, and there's no need to have a full court over the next 6 months. So there's no urgency. I really hope that this is something that the Republicans stand strong against, and that the Senate says, no, we'll reconsider this once the American people have spoken. And I would also hope that this moment is something that would kind of remind the American people of the stakes of this election. I mean, my goodness, if whoever the next president will decide not just this Supreme Court seat, but likely several others in the next term, and this will have an impact for, not just the next 4 years, 10 years, but for generations. So we really need to know that we are that the Republican nominee is somebody that we can get behind in terms of trusting that they have a conservative mindset and understand constitutional limited government. So this is just a reminder of how important these stakes is, and also not only for the presidency but for the Senate. I think a lot of times we're so focused on the presidential election for understandable reasons. The control of the Senate is going to be up for grabs in November. And Republicans out there who are right now thinking, thank goodness, at least the Republicans can block a nominee in the Senate. After this next election, they don't know if that's going to happen. So we really have to take not only the presidential election seriously, but also the Senate situation.
That's also true. But again, the United States Senate is under no obligation at all to concede. It says they have to consent to the advice and consent. Well, if they don't consent, which they're not required to do, and there is no time frame attached to any of this, this is called checks and balances, boys and girls. This is basic civics class, and this is why there are co-equal branches of government. That the dictator in the White House can't just stomp his feet and pound his fist on the desk and say, "This is the way it's going to be because I decree it so." It doesn't work that way, Carrie.
Absolutely. And I would hope that for so long, I think there's been kind of this dynamic when it comes to Senate Republicans and to kind of the Republican establishment in general and leaders of the Republican Party that they don't want to kind of invoke the ire of the Washington mainstream media and kind of the influentials. So, but I think that, my goodness, if there's anything that has become clear, it's that the base of the Republican Party and conservatives voters, across the board, they don't want people the leaders in Washington to focus on Washington. They want them to represent the people. And Republicans would be incredibly foolish to cave to pressure. They're, of course, going to be pissed by the New York Times and the Washington Post if they don't move quickly towards hearings and to ratify whoever President Obama appoints. But voters are mad now. Boy, would they be mad then. So,
no question.
I would hope that Republicans would at least know what they're getting into.
They have two chances here. Play by the rules that they put forth, the Republicans, and do not confirm any Supreme Court justice nominee. Those are their two chances. Carrie, we can get some therapy. We can work with it. I'll work with you. I'll do it for free.
I appreciate it. Yeah, obviously.
Carrie Lukas, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Managing Director at the Independent Women's Forum here on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Welcome back to it. It is Wednesday here in the program. It's just fast and furious. I mean, there's so many topics, where we're here doing the post-mortem on the big vote yesterday where Hillary Clinton won big. So did Donald Trump, missing only out on Ohio. John Kasich should leave the race, but he won't. He's there at the behest of Mitt Romney and the establishment trying to upset the apple cart and change the rules that they made. So that happens. And then Barack Obama announces that he's going to have a nominee for the Supreme Court, which the United States Senate should not consider. It's never happened. It hasn't happened since like 1888 that a seat has come up in an election year. And in that particular year, the presidency and the Senate were controlled by the same party, so it wasn't much of a conflict. This is unprecedented, despite what you'll be told. Oh, it happened during Ronald Reagan's time. No, it did not. Ronald Reagan nominated Kennedy in November of the previous year. And Ronald Reagan had two nominees prior to that were shot down by the Democrats. And then you've got all these other things going on, including Barack Obama making a complete about-face, completely contradicting himself, and coming out with the Interior Department yesterday saying it will not allow drilling rights in the Atlantic Ocean off Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, or Florida now. A complete reversal of where they were, and complete contradiction of Barack Obama's claim that he wants to be the president that gives America energy independence. America's energy renaissance is coming in spite of Barack Obama. Drilling on federal land has gone down each and every year of his presidency, while drilling and exploration has increased and been very successful on private land. Barack Obama is flat out lying to you, the American people, when he says that he is, fully supportive of American energy renaissance. He is not. It was demonstrated again yesterday. Dan Kish, Senior Vice President at the Institute for Energy Research, joining me now to sort it out. Dan, welcome back.
Well, good morning, Steve.
I'm a little wound up.
Well, I don't blame you. Listening to you, all I could think of is, it just seems like we're being pestered by our government, doesn't it?
Everywhere you go.
People are worried about their jobs, and they're worried about their kids and the future, and that's what this decision is all about, the future. This isn't going to have any impact. I mean, this 5-year plan sounds like something out of the old Soviet Union, doesn't it? The 5-year plan.
Well, yeah, that's the way it works.
That's what it is. It's a 5-year plan that determines where we're going to be allowed to look for oil in our own country between 2017 and 2022. So that's what this is about. And what they've done is peel it back. I mean, they've already, for the past 5 years, or since 2012, the administration has had the worst, in terms of availability, OCS 5-year plan, because they gutted the one that the Bush administration had when they came in the door, and came up with a new one. And in fact, on that one, the promise there was for 219 million acres to be offered, not all of that to be bought and explored.
Right.
They've dropped over 119 million of that. So they've dropped more than half of the existing plan. Now they come up with this plan, and the devil's in the details. But you mark my words, by the end of this administration, they're going to drop a bunch of this one too. Principally the stuff in Alaska and where there's no offshore production currently, and it's just kind of mind-boggling, because this is the oil we're going to need 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
See, that's the whole thing. He's trying to destroy.
Do this.
Yeah, he's taking a position to destroy long-term. Now, this can be overturned, though, right? By the next president, this can be pushed back.
Well, it can be, but because the Green Left, which is basically in control of the White House, witness the Keystone decision, witness the fact, that isn't discussed much, but several weeks ago they announced a moratorium on all coal leasing, no more coal on federal lands, which, where you're from, west, means no new mines. And so basically their position is keep it in the ground. We can't use this stuff because it's bad, and it will go back on his commitments that he made in Paris without any congressional approval to the UN. He sent him a check for $500 million last week.
Right, which is also illegal.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Which is also illegal. But again, this is I'm just going to say this. This is part of the feckless Republican spineless behavior that has allowed these things to go on and on and on, which is what given rise. It's Barack Obama's lawlessness and the Republicans' lack of spinal structure that has led to the rise of Donald Trump. If you got a problem with Donald Trump, you have nobody to blame except the Republican establishment that stands there to do nothing to prevent this kind of idiocy from continuing. Go on.
You're putting your finger on it. I mean, in all honesty, the law, as currently written, says that the Department of Interior, the administration, is supposed to, every 5 years, come up with a plan that expeditiously allows access to our offshore areas for producing energy for the benefit of the American public. You see that happening? No. But he breaks the law, and there's nobody. It's like you're in a town where there's no police.
Yeah, well, but there's a lot of thugs demanding to be paid, because if you don't pay the little fascist thugs, they'll shut you down. They'll send a riot. They'll send their police over, because they'll write the rules, write the penalties, and enforce those penalties without ever having it voted on by anybody that was elected to office, period.
That's right.
And that's the biggest problem.
Your only out is to try the courts. Of course, they pack the packet full of their judges, but in essence, you try the courts. By the time you're done, the damage is already done. And agencies like the EPA just laugh at the Supreme Court says you broke the law on one of their recent regulations, and they say, well, it's okay. Everybody did what we intended them to do. The damage is already done, and that's the way it works. I mean, this is what is going on. There's a sense of lawlessness.
Totally. I got to run,
government
Dan.
Out of control.
Yeah, totally out of control. Dan Kish, always appreciate it from the IER. Greatly appreciate it, Dan.
Thanks, Steve.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it, my friends. It is the Steve Gruber Show on a Wednesday, a big news day. Just got even bigger. Of course, the big primaries yesterday, and we'll have that in just a moment. But first, you need to know that coming at 11 o'clock today, Barack Obama will stick his thumb in the eye of the Republicans to see if they have a spine, to see if they flinch, to see if they're alive politically when he brings a Supreme Court nominee front and center. Front and center. He'll do that at 11 o'clock. Remember, this is the way it reads. The president shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint judges to the Supreme Court with advice and consent. By and with advice and consent. See, the Senate has no obligation whatsoever to give him a Supreme Court nominee. It has not happened. This is unprecedented, despite what you may be told. It has not happened since 1888 that a justice is appointed in a presidential election year. Furthermore, in the year that it last happened, 1888, the presidency and the Senate were controlled by the same party. So what we are dealing with now is clearly unprecedented, no matter what you're going to hear over the next days, weeks, and months. The only chance that this party has to save itself, the Republicans, is to do two things. One of those things is to hold tight on a Supreme Court justice nomination. Now, to the big election results from yesterday. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the big winners. No question. Donald Trump won 4 states, Illinois, North Carolina, Missouri, and the big prize of Florida. Hillary Clinton won the big prize of Florida and Ohio. Now, Donald Trump did not win Ohio. And in Missouri, it's still too close to call for Hillary and Bernie. Very close. There are a few hundred votes last time I looked, but it looks like she may pull that one out, and it might have been a clean sweep for her. But in Ohio, Governor John Kasich was able to hold off Donald Trump to win his own state, the first state he has won thus far, and 66 delegates, which leaves him only about 1,100 short. It leaves him only about 1,100 short of what it will need to win the Republican nomination, and there isn't any path, none, that he can take that can possibly get him there unless all of the other candidates in the race drop out today. So what's he going to do? Naturally, he's going to stay in and be the disruptor, the spoiler the Republicans have longed for since Donald Trump moved to the top of the polls last summer. Governor Kasich is going to stay in the race despite the fact there is only one role for him to play, and that is spoiler. It's entirely possible he won't win another single primary. Trump, like I said, won the big prize of Florida. Is 99 delegates, plus wins in North Carolina, Illinois, and Missouri. However, it's going to be a tougher road for Trump now to get to the 1,237 delegates needed to win the nomination. He will have to take more than 50% of the remaining voters to wrap up the GOP nod. Now, that is a tall order when you still have multiple candidates in the field. Now, having said that, Senator Marco Rubio, after finishing second in his home state of Florida, had the good sense to end his bid for the White House. He was the establishment favorite for a brief time as well, but it wasn't enough to jumpstart his effort, even with the sudden backing of GOP billionaires. Now, Republican Party bosses in what may well be remembered as their last stand have turned to one candidate after another in the hopes of derailing the man they demanded a loyalty pledge from last August. They demanded that Donald Trump give that pledge so he would not launch a third-party candidacy. He agreed. Now, however, they have turned on him in force, and it could well be the beginning of the very end for the Republican Party. When you ignore the will of the people and thumb your nose at voters and play what looks like to be a rigged game for all to see, the only losers will be those trying to pull the scam. Do not underestimate, I say, the anger of the American people. You must remember, we live in an age of smartphones, social media, and a 24-hour news cycle. There is no way in that atmosphere the elite will be able to slide in a candidate that they choose and they find acceptable and get away with it. It will create a complete meltdown. Now, the bosses had few choices left when they finally began to panic. Really panic about the growing success of Donald Trump. They turned reluctantly at the last possible minute to Governor Kasich and, to a much lesser extent, Senator Ted Cruz. But at this point, it is not a winning strategy to stop Trump. In fact, it could be far worse. Let me be blunt. John Kasich cannot win. Period. It appears, however, that he does not intend to leave the race anytime soon. In fact, last night, he stood there on the podium and said, "I will be elected the next president of the United States. I will go on and I will win at a brokered convention." By doing so, John Kasich is putting himself ahead of the voters and placing his importance ahead of the future of the country, because it will create that meltdown. This is why American voters are fed up with career politicians, the establishment in general, and, of course, politics as usual. People need to know when it's time to leave. Well, the time is now. But it's not going to happen. Billionaires that want to stop Trump will now flock to John Kasich, it appears. Ted Cruz, however, does have a very narrow path to victory. It's also quickly closing. The question is, will he stay in past his expiration date as well? Will he stay in just to create chaos and controversy? Time will tell. Let me say it again. If the Republican Party plays games and forces a brokered convention, everybody loses, because it will effectively leave America as a one-party state, on its way down the Marxist toilet with no plan to stop. Why? Because if the Republicans rig the game and people know it and the meltdown happens as I predict, the Republican Party will cease to be relevant at all going forward in national politics. You may not like it. You may want to scream and holler and point your finger at me, but this is the creation. This, my friends, is the creation of spineless Republicans that didn't do what they said they would do. You have a lawless president who does whatever he wants with a pen and a cell phone, and you have Republicans that were elected on the promise that they would stop that from happening, and yet $1.1 trillion in a garbage funding bill goes through. Obamacare is funded. Executive amnesty is funded. The list goes on and on and on, and nothing changes. Barack Obama has, at this point, fundamentally succeeded in changing America. Republicans have two things to do: play by the rules you put forth, and do not approve a nominee for the Supreme Court. Other than that, you're dead in the water. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Temperatures rising.
All right, welcome back to it. This is a monumental news day. looking at what's happening with the primaries and Donald Trump's big wins and Hillary Clinton's big wins, and now the president coming out with a Supreme Court nominee a little bit later today. Monumental news day. Need to get our friend and political commentator in here. Megan Barth, founder and proprietor of ReaganBaby.com. Megan, welcome back.
Good morning.
It's changed my whole day. I mean, go figure. Yeah. I mean, you probably woke up and went, ah, really? Come on.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even go to bed last night. Remember, I live in Vegas.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, we'll talk about that later. Anyhow, go on.
Right.
So you didn't go to bed.
I'm reading the Twitter feed this morning, and I'm watching Bill Kristol's head explode. I'm watching Jonah Goldberg's head explode, and I love Jonah Goldberg. But he claims that as a conservative, he doesn't vote for party, and he'll never vote for Trump. Well, did he vote as a conservative? Did he vote for Dole? Did he vote for McCain? Did he vote for GW? Did he vote for Romney? I mean, these people on the Never Trump movement, because they're conservative, are a bunch of jokesters.
Yeah, it's hard to take that seriously. I know they voted for moderates.
Yeah. As a conservative, I know they did.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's the problem?
It's ridiculous. And here's the thing, two things. And in fact, you can read it on ReaganBaby.com, in fact, which is that I think that John Kasich, by staying in the race, could well be the catalyst that destroys the Republican Party, because if he stays in, causes a brokered convention with some naive notion that he will be the candidate, and even if he were the candidate, nobody's going to vote for the guy. I mean, he'll get 40% of the vote. It'll be the biggest trouncing in recent memory, I believe. And then you've got changing the rules along the way. I mean, here Donald Trump here. They said you have to take a pledge of allegiance, basically, to our party that you won't run as a third-party candidate. So he does it with Reince Priebus. What was it, August? And then they come back and say, well, we're going to change the rules, move the goalpost anyway. Guys, you set up the system. You have to honor the voters, because if you don't, there's going to be a complete meltdown. And on the Supreme Court nominee thing now, if Mitch McConnell doesn't grow a spine and he allows a nominee to go through and get confirmed, there is no Republican Party anymore, period. It's over.
Yeah, remember Miguel Estrada. Let's not forget what the Democrats did to Miguel Estrada. The first Hispanic appointment to the Supreme Court. They butchered him. They used racial language against him. So we must remember the past, and we must use the tactics of the left against them. And this is where the GOP always falls behind. We'll just reach across the aisles. Yeah, that helped McCain, didn't it? Yeah. We don't reach across the aisles with the enemy. We bury the enemy. And the Democrat Party has always been the party of Marx, but now they're the party of Marx in the open and on steroids.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's the problem about, remember what went on. If you're 25 and under, your memory, so you're a voter, you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, whatever, you don't remember 9/11. You weren't taught anything of value in school when it came to Marxism or the Cold War or communism or Stalin or Mao. You weren't taught any valuable lessons about history. You were taught that America had slaves once, and so therefore we should feel guilty about it. You've been taught about entitlements and safe zones, and you've been taught about, fascist little liberals who want to shut down freedom of speech in the name of, we don't want to offend anyone. This is the garbage that's been taught to your children that are 25 and under. And that's the problem, Megan. There aren't enough thinking people left to keep things buoyant where they should be, and people considering the real ramifications.
Yes, and those are the Bernie Sanders supporters who every one of those supporters has been given a trophy, even though they're losers. Every one of his supporters have given passing grades, even though they've failed. They are the entitlement generation, the self-feed generation. The ones that were raised by parents that said, "Oh, you didn't lose. Second place isn't losing." But what's great about the Sanders supporters is that they're not going to rally behind Hillary Clinton. They don't like Hillary Clinton. They don't like the DNC. They're rallying behind Bernie to burn down the DNC because the DNC, quote unquote, has rigged. Not quote unquote, it's actually rigged the election in favor, the delegates in favor of Hillary, and they're fuming mad. And the millennials really don't show up to vote anyway.
The only chance they have, they show up to vote for Bernie. The chance that they have is if Hillary Clinton does not pick the Marxist mayor of San Antonio, Texas, and instead chooses the Marxist from Vermont as her running mate. I mean, those are your two options. And make no mistake, she is just as bad because I've asked liberals, well-educated liberals that I know, explain to me the difference between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, and they hem and they haw, and then they say something nasty about Trump or Cruz, but they never actually answer the question. They can't define the differences between these two candidates that are marked and significant because there aren't any.
Yeah, and I have said since day one that Hillary Clinton will choose the Marxist from San Antonio who now sits on HUD, Julian Castro. She tweeted out the other day, the Castro brothers, because Hillary wants to secure the Latino vote and will do so by dividing the country, especially if Trump is the nominee. She'll paint him as a racist. She already has. She'll paint him as a misogynist, a sexist, etc., a homophobe. And this is what the people on the right don't understand who have this fear of Trump. They're claiming that, oh, my God, the media wants Trump because they're just going to excoriate him and use all of this, information against him. They're going to do that with any GOP candidate. When haven't they?
I'm going to give you a little bit of advice, though. There was a crazy column on Salon. I know, weird that I was reading that, right? Saying that Hillary Clinton is a weak candidate and Donald Trump could clean her clock in November if he's the nominee. It's worth looking at. Megan Barth from ReaganBaby.com, a place to get great information. Thank you, as always.
Thanks, Steve.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
All right, welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show. This next story, pay close attention to. It's a difficult story to tell and to hear, but it's one you need to hear. Jamiel Shaw Sr., the father of a football player, gunned down in his prime at the age of 17 by an illegal alien, shot because of the color of his backpack. It was a Spider-Man backpack, and it apparently attracted the attention of a gang member, Pedro Espinoza, here illegally. Like I said, Shaw, a running back at Los Angeles High School, had been named the Southern League's most valuable player and shot down for no reason. And then his parents, Jamiel Shaw Sr. and his mother, Althea Shaw, have both endorsed Donald Trump and gotten a lot of attention for it. Jamiel Shaw, welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
Glad to have you here. First of all, tell us about and I know it's hard, but tell us about your son and the day that he was killed by an illegal alien. Real first, Althea is my sister. His mother is Sergeant Nita Shaw. She was in Iraq when he was murdered. One Sunday morning, we went to a football training camp to get some work in for Division I prospects. Way home, he asked me, could he go to the mall? Reluctantly, I said, yeah, be home by 7. Let him go. Called me at 7 o'clock. Where are you? Oh, we caught the wrong bus. That's okay. I call you in an hour. Where are you? Right around the corner. Oh, cool. Then I heard 2 gunshots. I mean, I'd never heard gunshots like that before. I mean, it was obvious. It was right outside. I called his cell phone and said, man, look out, somebody's shooting. Didn't answer the phone, so then I had that feeling, was like, damn, don't tell me this boy just got shot. I remember saying, I hope he's not dead. I went outside to look, see what's going on, and there he was, laying in the middle of the street, dead, already dead. I couldn't believe it. Even right now, talking about it, it's just so sad on your soul to see your child. And then you find out that the guy that pulled the trigger is in the country illegally. He's an illegal alien, Pedro Espinoza. He's a gangbanger. And so you have places that are these sanctuary cities and so forth, and how difficult. You said his mother serving the United States military in Iraq at the time of his death.
Yeah.
So your family is serving America, and And you get nothing out of this. I mean, here's my question to you now. Then you hear Donald Trump talking about illegal aliens, and we have to stop this problem. And I have an article here that says that was the first time you smiled in a long time.
Oh, man, it was like Christmas. It was like Santa Claus was coming to town. It was like, all right, yeah, here we go. You know, time to do something. It was just so invigorating to my family, and my phone was ringing. Everybody was good and bad saying, man, did you hear that? I don't like Trump, but I'm glad he's doing enough for you, or I'm going to vote for Trump now. I never voted ever, now I'm going to vote. You should see the excitement, but you don't hear about it on the news. They want everybody to think black people are just sitting around waiting for Jesus and hoping the Democrats help us out. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're ready to go to work. People out here are depending on Trump because they know he's going to bring jobs back. He's going to build a wall. They're going to feel safe. I mean, you know, this is our time to live in America. Why we got to be under the oppression of illegal immigration? You know,
I don't mean to laugh there, but you I think you hit it right on the head. Democrats, people think that black Americans are, as you put it, sitting around waiting for Jesus to come back and hoping that they get a crumb from the Democrats. Right. Here's the thing that I have to ask you about. You've met Donald Trump. You've stood with him on stage, and now he's being accused. He's a racist. He's a bigot, and so on and so forth. Because he's identified the problem of illegal aliens. What do you say to people? You're an African American man who has lost a son to an illegal alien, and you're supporting Donald Trump, and they say to you he is a racist. What do you say in return?
He's not. That's a damn lie. Excuse me for saying the damn word, but yeah, I tell people all the time, what would you do if someone did somebody in your family like that? What would you expect of somebody running for president to do when he heard that there are Americans being murdered by illegal aliens? You would expect the same thing. Everything Donald Trump is talking about, we were promised from the GOP, the House, the Senate, and everything else, and we didn't get nothing. They were saying the same thing. They didn't do it. Now everybody knows that Trump is going to do what he say. Now they're worried. But we're happy because we figure finally somebody's going to do what they said they're going to do.
Finally. We're on the line with Jamiel Shaw Sr. His son gunned down at the age of 17 by an illegal alien, Pedro Espinoza, in Los Angeles. His son, a standout star football player, but he had a Spider-Man backpack that apparently, caused this illegal alien to think he was part of the wrong gang, gunned down just steps from his front door. And now his parents and his relatives supporting Donald Trump. And so what do you do? I mean, I think that you've hit on something important here, Jamiel, which is the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton, takes black voters for granted. They just, you're going to vote with us because you have to. What has the Democratic Party done in your lifetime to help out the black community at all?
Not a damn thing. And what's so crazy about it, you hear all these black politicians claiming that they were around doing Selma, Martin Luther King, and before that, and the Ku Klux Klan is just worse, and it's just so vile. Then why in the hell didn't you guys get rid of it when you had your chance? Ever since slavery, no one has put up a bill. Now they passed a law to stop the Klan. But then as soon as somebody endorses Donald Trump and the Klan, he got nothing to do with that. But now all of a sudden the Klan is so vile and vicious. Then why didn't you spend your time in office to get rid of them? They didn't even try, and then they want us to think that, oh, Trump is racist. They even call me a racist. I'm a racist. Everybody's a racist when you don't agree with them.
Well, exactly. They play the race card because they don't have a legitimate argument yet to discuss, Right. I just want to point this out to you. Will Quigg is the man's name. He is the Grand Dragon of the California Ku Klux Klan, and he said Monday he is endorsing Hillary Clinton for the presidency because she has a hidden agenda and is, apparently he believes, to be an actual racist. She is not, Donald Trump is held to a different standard, as you figured out. Hillary Clinton has not said anything about this endorsement from the California Klan, yet they call Donald Trump a racist, it's a double standard. I'm sure you figure that out. But what do you do, Jamiel, to convince more people to vote, whether they're black or not black? I don't care. What do you do to convince more people that Donald Trump is going to do the things that you need to see done to protect other people like your son from getting shot?
Just tell the truth. Don't try to add in nothing. Just tell the facts. They can't deal with the facts. They need you to add in stuff to make it, so they can deal with it. But just tell the facts. Tell what's happening. Tell what he's going to do. Tell what they didn't do. See, their record is their Achilles heel. They haven't done nothing since the very beginning. The Democrats were the Ku Klux Klan. They don't even talk about that. They were the ones who started it. Byrd was in office for pretty much his whole life, and he was the Grand Wizard of the Klan.
Yeah, the same man that Hillary Clinton kissed on the lips and referred to as her mentor, and then her husband eulogized at his funeral, Senator Byrd of West Virginia, the Grand Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan, and said, well, shucks, he was running for office just trying to get a few votes. Oh, yeah. What's a lynching among friends if you're running for office, Bill Clinton? I mean, come on. Jamil, I'll give you the last word.
He admitted to it and said he's sorry for things that he did. He said, I did some bad things in my life. So what about that?
Yeah.
They don't care. It's not about. It's all about Democrats' votes. They want to be voted in because they're scared that Trump is going to do what he said he's going to do. Hillary's not.
Jamiel Shaw, great conversation. I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you again.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. And what a horrible thing to have his own son gunned down just a few steps from his front door and then realize that the man's in the country illegally. And the Democrats turned their backs on him. Wednesday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, 45 after the hour. Time for a quick hotline check with Jennifer. Jennifer, what's on your mind?
Hey, I'm going to make a prediction. I think if Donald Trump runs as a third-party candidate, all of the people that are backing him will follow him. It is the death of the Republican Party, unless they get rid of people like Mitch McConnell and John Boehner II, who has inherited the position as Speaker of the House.
Why?
I am so angry, I can't begin to tell you.
Why would Trump need to run as a third party? It looks like he still has an odds-on favorite to get the nomination.
If they diss him.
Oh.
If they dump him.
Yeah, fair point. If they treat him unfairly, I mean, yeah. But either way.
They treat him they are not going to salvage the followers of Donald Trump.
No.
It isn't going to happen.
No, it'll.
And I'll tell you,
that'll be the end of it. No question, Jennifer. I got to jump because I got to go somewhere else real quick. But you're right. That'll be the end of it, just like we were talking about. I appreciate you checking in. The hotline number for future reference, 888-900-9966. We have to go to Oren Cass now, senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, doing our last little post-mortem on the Tuesday primaries. Oren, welcome back to the program.
Hey, great to be here.
So give me your thumbnail response of just give it to me clean. I won't say a thing quite yet.
Well, after last night, I think Trump is obviously ahead and has some chance of getting a majority before the convention. But more than ever, it looks like the most likely outcome is that no one is going to have a majority before the convention, and it's going to have to be settled in Cleveland.
And I think that based on, but if he's close, if he's at like 1150 or something like that, I mean, he's well over halfway now. If it's close and they yank it and they play some game and put up John Kasich or Mitt Romney, it will be the end of the Republican Party. Now, that's my prediction, because it'll be a complete meltdown. If you go to a guy and demand his allegiance and not to run as a third-party candidate, and then you tell him that he's welcome to participate like anybody else, and then you do what looks like gaming the system, just like Jennifer just said, his voters will not support him. They will not support any Republican. It'll be the end of the party on the national stage, possibly forever.
Well, I think there are two sides to that calculus. The other side is that if the Republican Party nominates Donald Trump, it's the end of the Republican Party. Would that be the same Republican Party and the same pundits that said he couldn't win beginning in July and then in August, September, October, November, and it went on and on. He couldn't possibly win. He will go away. And yet, in a YouGov poll just yesterday, he broke the alleged ceiling. He got 53% support nationally from Republicans. So this alleged ceiling of 40-some% isn't there. And who's more likely to lose in November, Ted Cruz or Donald Trump? Well, the polls say Donald Trump is more likely to lose in November. In almost every head-to-head, Ted Cruz is within a point or two, sometimes ahead of Clinton. Donald Trump is typically more than 10 points behind. But I think, there's actually a very interesting parallel. You have to go back a century. But in 1912, you had a contested Republican convention between, of all people, Theodore Roosevelt and William Taft. And a lot of people think Taft kind of stole the nomination from Roosevelt, and Roosevelt broke off and ran as a third party. But it wasn't the end of the Republican Party. It was one very bad election. And so if, you know...
It was the beginning of the end of America, because we ushered in Woodrow Wilson and his socialist policies, many of which are still a disaster today. Go on.
Well, fair enough, but it's been 100 years, and America's still kicking. You know, I think certainly if the Republican Party nominates someone other than Donald Trump in a contested convention, it could still be a very ugly race in November. But if you look ahead beyond that, you're talking about a Republican Party that still has the overwhelming majority of governorships and state houses, very large majorities in Congress, and frankly, a lot of very talented leaders who could be presidential nominees in the future.
Well, where are these talented leaders that didn't show up in 2015 and 16?
Well, frankly, some of the people who did show up in 2015 and 16 are talented leaders who, some of them needed more seasoning, I think, weren't quite ready to run for president. Some of them got steamrolled by this Donald Trump phenomenon. But I think it's important to understand that, you know, if you nominate Donald Trump, you're really getting somebody who really has shown a complete disrespect for the American political system. You know, he
let me ask you this,
dictators.
Interesting
he supports
case.
Violence.
Interesting. I don't believe that. But interesting point you made there, Oren
I think
Cass.
that's an important point. You don't think he supports violence when he's telling his crowds to go ahead and punch protesters? And he's already now threatened that he wants there to be riots, or at least is predicting his supporters will riot in Cleveland if he doesn't get what he wants.
Well, why do you think that is, Oren? Might it be the fact that the Republican Party has shown no respect for the voters that put them in those governorships, in the majority in the Senate, historic numbers in the House, and yet they still pass executive amnesty and fund it? They pass a $1.1 trillion piece of garbage omnibus bill. They continue to support Planned Parenthood. They continue to support everything that Barack Obama wants, he gets.
Well, they have
so
not
where do you think that anger comes from? They funded all of his policies.
You know, I think there's a difference between being angry and rioting, and I think you're drawing exactly the right line. It's completely fine to say...
Well, let me tell you something. The only people I've seen riot so far are the petulant little liberal fascists that are trying to shut down freedom of speech. I haven't seen Donald Trump people show up at a Bernie rally, or Ted Cruz's people show up at a Bernie rally, or any other conservative Republican show up at a Bernie rally. You know why? We have jobs. We have something to do. The petulant little fascists that want safe zones and want to be able to not speak, and you can only speak when spoken to, and freedom of speech, but only if you say what we want. I haven't seen Republicans or Donald Trump's people do any of those things.
I think that's an absolutely fair point. I think the question is just whether you think Donald Trump is pretty unique among all the politicians out there.
He is unique, but you're saying, you know, he might cause violence. Well, I can guarantee you this, the liberals have caused violence, not might have. You know, they riot in the streets of cities when they don't get what they want. They burn down entire city blocks. They riot at Donald Trump events. I mean, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm not talking about the rank and file folks, and I think you and everyone is right to condemn those people who are rioting. I'm talking about the actual people who we could nominate as the presidential candidate for a political party, and whether we think Donald Trump should be one of those people.
Well, we should have thought about that in July of last year, maybe, but to panic at this hour and try to change the rules a little bit late. Oren Cass, I do appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having me.
From the Manhattan Institute, we'll be right back. All right, a couple of minutes to go. Phone line open, by the way. Tom on the phone line, on the hotline. Tom, what's on your mind?
Hey, I'd like to encourage all Trumpsters out there to sign the Schneider recall letter. And then if the establishment starts playing games with Trump and keeping him from getting it, we pull the lever to recall Schneider and hand the Democrats his head. Or Schneider himself comes out and says he's not going to endorse Trump for whatever reason. We recall him.
But what do you get out of that? What's the advantage?
Well, it's called retaliation.
Yeah. So would you?
You're not gonna get away with it.
Would you prefer Brian Calley as president, as governor? Excuse me. Would you prefer Brian Calley as governor? Excuse me.
Well, I don't know if they start playing games. Or Snyder one time said too he wasn't going to endorse Trump. And if he comes out and pressures people not to vote for Trump, or if the establishment says, no, Donald, we're not going to give it to you even though you got the most delegates, we're going to give it to Kasich or Mitt Romney, then we hand a Democrat his head on a silver platter.
Fair enough,
Recalling.
Tom. Greatly appreciate your input today. We'll take a lot more calls tomorrow because we'll have an idea of who the president has selected for the Supreme Court nominee that he's putting forth. If you're looking for room to grow, a new home in the country might be right for you, but with so many construction choices, how do you know which options offer the best value? Greenstone Farm Credit Services is right here to help you. The week of March 21st, that's this coming week, Greenstone is holding a series of educational seminars on new home construction. Industry experts will cover a range of subjects, including how to make selections that add value to your home, being your own contractor, and paths to financing your project. To learn more and to register, visit greenstonefcs.com/seminar. This is the time to do it. By the way, this hour of the Steve Gruber Show has been brought to you by the Michigan 529 programs, making sure your kids and grandkids get the education they need. To learn more, go to SaveWithMI529.com. And remember, tomorrow, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 will be the hotline tomorrow. I'm going to guess we're going to have a lot of input tomorrow here on the program. So, warm up your cell phone. Get ready for a big day tomorrow on the Steve Gruber Show.